We are coming up on my third anniversary of officially serving this congregation. The first 2 years as your intern minister, and this church year we're calling me your student minister in residence. A better name might be bridge minister, but that sounds sort of like a cabinet position in European government. And I do not understand even the basics of how actual bridges work. But I am here exploring the borderlands, sort of the edges between, congregational. Okay, I got to work with my hands on the mic up here. Between congregation and ministry, and the community in which we're physically located. So I'm questioning and testing what are the different kinds of pedestrian bridges that we can build between those two, between congregation and ministry and this community. What might those involve? And I'm focusing on a few areas that I already know a little bit about: singing as a spiritual practice, serving the spiritual needs of folks with profound intellectual disability, support and education around death and dying and end-of-life work, and trans and non-binary education and support. So I'm contemplating our theme of wonder, and I've been considering, how does wonder relate to my bridging ministry areas? When Aaliyah asked me if I'd talk today on wonder, I realized that wonder is exactly what I need to spend time contemplating, because during this most everything time of the year, I can really easily slide further away from wonder and into overwhelm. Anybody else get there? Okay. Wonder is so many things. It's awe and astonishment. 20th century Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel is known for his commitment to the experience of being in wonder. He called it radical amazement. And for him, wonder includes transcendence, divinity, wisdom, mystery, reverence. I think for me too, those are also true, and a big dose of joy shows up. On Saturday nights, I always tell my son, Lars, who is nonverbal and cognitively about 4 or 5 months old, I always go and visit him and tell him what the next church day will be about. So I have a chance to hear what happens when I need to boil it down and touch the essence of it. And last night I told him that wonder means whoa. And he clapped. Wonder isn't an experience that we can organize or manage. It's not a checklist item. And as much as people who sell stuff would love for us to believe otherwise, I think it's both worth everything and absolutely not for sale. Heschel wrote, "Forfeit your sense of awe, let your conceit diminish your ability to revere, and the universe becomes nothing but a marketplace for you. The loss of awe," he wrote, "is the avoidance of insight." Wonder cannot be forced. It doesn't happen on our schedule or our Google Calendar. By way of invitation, all we can do is create the space, set the table, and open the door. Okay, so how? Pamela talked about this in the chalice lighting as well. Here are the 3 things that I think work for me, that help clear the way for encounters with reverence, with astonishment. And I will offer fair warning that even in the best of times in our lives, approaching one of these sometimes seems like a tall order. So we just do what we can. The first one is, I think for me, wonder shows up when I'm able and willing to be awake, to be present with the reality of what's actually here, which also means I'm not actively distracted by anxiety, by doing things, by doing anything that takes me away from my real experience. So like the kiddo in our story for all ages this morning, I don't think I've ever encountered awe staring at my phone screen. But I'm quite sure that I have missed it quietly happening around me while I was not noticing. The other day, I realized I had been totally hunched over, and my entire visual field had been focused for who knows how long on this, 3x5 screen? Anybody else find yourself there sometimes? Yeah. My daughter is actually giving up her smartphone and going back to a dumb phone at age 25. As if our little tiny screen problems weren't enough for us to work with, y'all. I mean, distraction can take so many other sneaky, underhanded forms, like cynicism, like any of the ways that we find to work around authenticity, wanting to seem cool or smart, trying to fit in. Okay, so number 1 is awake presence. Number 2 is space. Space. Internal space. Wonderment is facilitated by moments when I slow myself down a bit, when I'm settled enough inside that there's some space, some breath, some room, some window of openness, so that something new and unexpected can wriggle its way in. If I'm full up to here and the doors are closed, maybe the defenses are even put up in place, then I think probably only a gigantic, shocking moment of astonishment is going to be able to bust in. And those I find are seriously rare, like, think Christmas Story in Luke kind of rare. You're out camping with some sheep and you're stunned awake. Lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. I mean, I do find it somewhat comforting that even a couple thousand years ago, the wake-up call to wonder required a really high drama quotient. So we've got awake presence and space. And my third one is attention. Attention. Poet Mary Oliver was our patron saint of attention, of paying attention. She showed us that, yes, amazement and astonishment are priceless. Yes, they are not for sale, but we do have to pay. We pay with our attention. We have to notice. Whatever we do, beloveds, with great attention becomes sacred. Mary Oliver spent her career teaching us how to pay attention. From Sometimes. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. And a line from her famous poem, The Summer's Day. I don't know exactly what a prayer is, but I do know how to pay attention. Writer Annie Lamott adds, gorgeous, amazing things come into our lives when we are paying attention. Unto us so much is given. We just have to be open for business. So returning to the intersection of bridging ministry areas and wonder, I realized that being with folks who have profound intellectual disabilities and being with people who are nearing end of life and singing as a spiritual practice all require my awake presence, requires slowing down, space, paying attention. And in turn, they have brought me to my knees with reverence and awe every day. The good news is that presence and space and attention are permanently enrolled in a matching gift program with wonder and awe. So if you invest in either, it'll facilitate the other. We've talked about needing to be present to feel awe, and also feeling awe invites us into the present moment. Feeling awe can transport us out of self-focused worry and connect us with something larger than ourselves. And that creates the space to breathe and the space for more awe. All of our on-ramps to alert mindfulness are different. Our on-ramps to openness and attention are different. But I just want to take a little space and time to invite us in together today in just one of the ways that works for me. Or maybe a couple at a time, I don't know. So for me, breathing intentionally, silence, poetry that feels like sacred text, and music that always is my sacred text invite me in. So I'm going to invite all of us just to take a moment, notice our body, let it settle. Notice your breath for a spell. Non-binary poet Andrea Gibson, who sometimes goes by Andy or Andrew, is our current poet laureate of Colorado. And they remind us that we experience everything, our whole lives, in our bodies. Ideas, grief, beauty, awe. Gibson seems to get a real kick out of how our bodies translate moments of wonder into goosebumps. The first poem in their most recent book of poetry is called Acceptance Speech, after setting the world record in goosebumps. That poem begins, "I wasn't by any means a natural. Not one of those wow hounds born jaw dropped. I was tough in the husk. Went years untouched by rain. My tears, like teenagers, hiding under the hoods of my eyes. So committed they were to never falling for the joke of astonishment. When I was told there were 7 wonders of the world, I trusted the math, and I believed I had seen none of them." That poem, which goes on to detail Gibson's journey toward wonder and the moments that each brought 505 or 776 goosebumps, that poem was written just months after they were diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer 2 years ago at age 46. The poem of theirs that I'm going to share in its entirety, On Titan, was written just this past March 3rd, and it immediately became my new favorite poem. I shared it with this congregation on March 12th at our Help Thanks Wow service. Gibson has been a spoken word poet for 2 decades, but their work changed radically during this time of facing their mortality. I'm going to invite you to listen for their invitation to wonder, their willingness to be awake and aware, their willingness to slow down, to pay attention, to feel and express what are actually the most vulnerable of all emotions, deep joy and awe. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, raindrops are much bigger than they are on Earth and fall so slowly you can look up and see one coming and move out of the way. Imagine seeing that for the first time, rain inching down from the sky, your eyes wide as you follow each streaming drop to the ground. How you'd be hypnotized. That's how I feel looking at our world, knowing our time here is not promised. I heal the disease of being accustomed to beauty. I see the miracle in the aspen tree with its golden leaves like 1,000 yellow lights begging me to slow down. May I never be mistaken for an old soul. May the astonishment on my face say, "This is my first time here," marveling at the steam rising from a cup of lavender tea, the patch of sun that traveled 90 million miles to warm the hardwood floor where my oldest puppy dreams, my December window thrown open to my neighbor's violin. Every goosebump on my skin, a gold coin in God's tip jar. Every poet I know regrets much of what they wrote in the past. But I regret nothing more than how much ink I gave to my pain, the bolded grudges, the highlighted losses. I could fill libraries. I could fill libraries with the joy I've gained since I started praying for what I already have. I'll extend to us all a holiday invitation to wonder. Set the table with awake presence. Set the table with space. Set the table with attention. And open the doors. Let me know what comes in.